when you were back in Italy, you just started a few companies, and why didn't you look for an investor? Did you? And if not, why didn't you?
You mean when it was before moving to US?
Yes.
Um, Maybe at the time, it wasn't known the concept of looking for investors into like similar to what we consider today an investor. Like at the time we're talking about eventually going to banks, and then I was not in the US. Italy, just to give you an idea, started to talk about investment into startups and and young companies no more than 4, 5, 6 years ago. And at the time, I'm talking about 1999, 2000, so I'm talking about 12 years ago. Just to give you an idea, still now there are like 5, 6, 7 companies, investors well known in the country. So it was not the time. I sort of asked for money, like I sort of asked for investment. Actually, I asked them to my parents. They helped me out a bit, and I never felt there was a present. So I did it, I put a lot of effort into giving money back, and I did it. But I also went to a bank. I wanted to do it by myself. So actually, I went to a bank first, and bad luck because at the time, we just turned from lire to euro in Italy, and euro was much weaker than the dollar. So I think I asked for about 20,000 euros. That converted in dollar was like 12 grands, and now it's the opposite. So it was really tough to do it. Yeah, and then I took the money and went to US, but at the end I haven't been working for several months. And at the time, dollar was really strong, so practically I used all the money for the first 6-9 months of my experience.
But there wasn't that greed of like, I want to start a company and I want to make money now, like quick, like right now, like yesterday. Well, you didn't have that feeling.
You mean when I was still in Italy?
Yeah, in the first 2-3 companies you made out, you weren't greedy. You made that company from scratch just for the pleasure of making a company. It's like simplest, but that's kind of the idea.
Actually, yes, you hit a very good point. Like, I was not thinking big. I had a nice big vision on how I would have wanted to see my company several years, but I never thought as in a very commercial way. So actually everything was, I call it passion driven. So everything is based on passion, and when you do it for passion, you never think about money. Eventually, if you're smart enough to convert passion into a smart business, then you definitely can generate money if you are in the good spot, in the good moment, and you're able to manage it. And at the time, there is another factor that only lately I'm thinking. When I speak to people, like right now, I'm like advising Italian companies in Silicon Valley. Keep in mind that at the time when after my LA story, I moved to San Francisco because of a client of mine who asked me to help them out there, and I didn't want to. Like, as she was saying at the beginning, when it was in LA, I rejected 2 Google offers, 2 offers from Google in the early stage. And the only reason why I said no, and now, I might say I feel stupid, but I don't regret a thing in my life. I said no because I pretty much got back into a comfort area in Los Angeles after 2 years of being like immigrant, and then I bought a house, and then the company was working nicely. I didn't become rich, but the company was working, so I wasn't entirely satisfied. Like, as being an immigrant, I moved to LA and selling to American companies. A product that I was building was really amazing. So I said no, mainly because at the time I didn't know San Francisco that well, and the only 2 times I've been were only foggy and cold. I said I want to move to a cold city. So that was my first approach. But of course, there has to be also, if you really want to build a successful company, you need to put something more than just passion. You need to be committed, you need to feel the responsibilities toward people working with you, and sometimes at the time, maybe I didn't feel that because I was not considering them employees of my company. I was considering them sort of partners, but they were not. So as I also wanted to go through this thing talking about problems and mistakes and failure, I can definitely see that when someone is asked to be hired by a company and you feel like you are an employee looking for a job and you don't want to risk yourself, that's totally fine. There is nothing bad against not risking. It's fine. But of course, when you hire people and you think that people you're hiring are technically employee, but you consider them as a partner, and you ask them to run, maybe to work after hours, it doesn't really work like that. At the beginning they follow you, but then if you're not a good growth manager, I learned that term, like a manager that is able to manage the growth of the company, then after a few years you start to have problems because people, of course, can look for another job and maybe paid more than what it was offering, and they can leave you and find other companies. Actually, is what happened to my company, but it was totally natural. So that was a good point.
Actually, that's something I'm interested in. I'm very interested on what happens. Okay, you have a startup, it works out, but most of them die before, within their first 5 years of being created. So I'm interested in how did you handle that? Like when your company is growing, you have to keep talent with you. How do you do that? Before you mentioned you can be, the guy who sells stuff, the guy who does human resources, the guy who manages everything. Tell me a little bit about that. Did you have an experience where someone that you consider super talented left you? What did you do about that? I want to hear a little bit more about that process.
Yeah. Empty. So yeah, that's actually a very, very good point. As I said before, first, no one till the years, I would say 2005, so after 6 years I started my first company, no one ever came to me to teach me how to do these things. And these things, you really don't learn it at school. I mean, I see you're not super young, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's actually a very big problem. And right now, I founded years ago this other startup that is doing really well. It's called Duchu, and probably Speak One. We do market research online. It's a short story. So now we are unexpectedly 14 people, and it boomed in the last 6 months. We were just 2 people, me and my co-founder, now we are 14 people. And now we are even more than before. We need to be very attentive and not to lose people, to keep people very, on the same page, to have the people motivated in what they do, and it's really hard. Of course, I learned from my past lessons, so maybe now I would know it a little bit better. Definitely on the top of being very good to sell your product and run your business in general, you need to be a good leader. And I know it's banal to say to be a good leader, but it's really difficult, and you need pretty much to be, one-man show that runs, when the company is still small, 10, 20 people, 30, up to 50, 100, still a small company. That means that everyone in the company still know who you are, know where your office is, know how to hug you if needed, and you need to be present with them. And some stuff you cannot just delegate to people. You can even have maybe an HR guy helping out with things, but at the end, it's still you. So to answer precisely to your question, if you had the luck to have maybe a mentor, to have someone to tell you how to do these things, or if you have the luck to study that, maybe there are even very good books today to give you some insight on how to manage these things. But pretty much running a company, any project, even not just a project, is really complicated. Like before starting, we just maybe see the thing and oh yeah, it's easy. I hire people, and I'm gonna hire a developer, I'm gonna hire a graphic designer, I'm gonna hire someone, I'm gonna hire people. But then you need to manage people, and people that you hire still are your employees. And employees usually they can even be really, really smart, but at the end, it's still you to give them your vision and time. You need to be present. And at the beginning, it's really crazy. Right now, as I said, our team is 14 people and is in pretty much 3 continents. It's like United States, Italy, and now I'm here. I need to manage, 3 time zones. And even if I have an amazing team, I'm really lucky to have such an amazing team that pretty much they work by myself. But still, if I'm not there, if I don't Skype, and when I say Skype, I don't mean chatting with them. I mean calling them, letting them hear my voice, and be present physically at some meetings. Only lately, for instance, I found out that how important it is to be physically present for people, like having physical meetings with investors, with clients, with your team. You can send an email to people, you can send an email to your employees, you can send a Skype chat or a WhatsApp. Now it's really big, but still it's not the same thing. It's not enough. It's just a cold message, like an alert or something. And lately I'm finding out, how important it is to be really present. And actually, not just me, I'm finding out, even the airlines that I am supporting. I flew last year alone 50,000 miles, and it was crazy. And I did that only because I needed to be present for people. And when I was trying to avoid that, because at the beginning it's even fun, but then after 1 month, you fly like crazy. You fly pretty much 30,000 miles a month. It's crazy. You spend 4 or 5 days a month just flying. You're trying to avoid that, and it's tough. It's tough to say no to people, and it's tough the opposite. So yeah, in the moment of growth, when you are in between, just say 0 and 100 people, pretty much you're killing yourself. Of course, there is no way you can consider working just 8 hours and then delegate to people, because it's really not the case. Another big suggestion: invest in people, invest in human resources. Don't be greedy on maybe salary, motivate people even economically. Keep in mind they're still employees, they're not part of your company. It's even hard to make people part of your company when the company started. It's happened to me after I moved to San Francisco. My company was just me in terms of equity, even if I had employees and I had consultants with commissions. I started to share, to have a partner, because I wanted to have a support on a management level, and I wanted someone to share my ideas. But my company, formally the US one, I founded in 2002, and it was the year 2007, so 5 years later. So the guy, even if he was an amazing smart guy, speaking 4 languages, super fun, super friendly, super generous, super respectful, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was, oh wow, I found my perfect partner. It was a total failure. After 1 year, the expectation was totally different. He never worked in a small company, he only worked for big corporations. So, for instance, just a very basic thing, I gave him a corporate credit card just for some corporate expenses. Could be a taxi, could be a flight, could be anything. But you know, sometimes the guys forget that the money is coming from your company, it's coming from your pocket. It's not coming from the sky and God. So, yeah, there was also some issue, you know, from the finance part, you know. At the end, he ran the whole year, and I saw he put a lot of effort, but he never thought as someone responsible for what he was doing. At the end of the story, if he was not, just say, selling enough, at the end of the year, the guy responsible for the company and to pay employees was me. So, in the way to be really motivated, you need to be on the piece. You need to own equity, and sometimes it's not enough, because equity, when you start a company, is worth zero. Company is worth zero. You can even have 50%, but it's 50% of zero. So you need to be put on the piece. You need to invest money. You need to invest your own time. You need to be committed. You need to be liable somehow. And it's almost impossible to run a successful company when you bring on board people at further stages. Maybe after a few months, when you know, I suppose a lot of you have a startup, maybe Startup Chile, or just, you know, I was said a problem about here. And a thing that I learned really strong, and that I thought it was good, and I found out it's not good. There are a lot of events, I don't know if you ever heard about CTO wanted, like looking for a CTO. That's bad. I know it's the easiest way to go. You have a great idea, maybe you're not technical, and pretty much you want someone to help you out with one technical part. Okay, so what's the problem here? First, the idea started from you, so you need first to share the idea with the guy. So you need to make sure the guy is sharing your same vibe, your same idea, your same vision, and that's already a big difficulty. Second, why you do that? So why you are looking for someone to hire, like someone to partner with? Sometimes you do it because you don't have enough money to pay for someone to build it, so you said, just do share like 50-50. I give you 50% of my company, which is already high, for instance. And some people are even greedier and say, oh, I give you 20%. So like, you build it, we work together, but the idea is mine, so I pay only 20% of equity. Maybe vesting equity, is the inverse. It doesn't work like that. Like, maybe you're lucky you find the perfect guy who understood perfectly everything and he wants to share the risk with you, but at the end, you still feel like you're kind of the boss, and it's like the guy who hopped on board a little bit later. So there is still the situation is not balanced. So the best way to do it, like, you know, by manual, I would say, is either you ask someone for money or you use your own money and you hire someone. If you hire someone, you have a contract, and you know, you can say, I hired you to do this thing and I pay you this amount, you have a time to deliver, and you can keep the things under control. Or you can try to commit the guy. By the way, to commit the guy, you need to know the person. You cannot find a CTO or a CEO or like a product manager in the first stage on the street. Because at the beginning, everything is cool. You accept pretty much everything. During the months, like after 1 year, 2 years, then practically, of course, you got to learn the person you chose, but maybe it was not the person you were expecting. And you may have a lot of problems. Like right now, I'm advising other startups, and I'm seeing this problem like every day. I even asked the lawyer who's managing papers for my company. I kind of, you know, I was in that situation as well, and he told me, yeah, that's very, very common. Usually, problems comes out when you are very close to get funding from a seed investment, like a seed investor, an angel investor, like a VC, even worse. So practically, you find out that your 20% is not enough. Then you start to go to the other co-founder. Oh, you know what? if you don't give me 20% more, I don't work for you anymore. And these things happen all the time. So yeah, it's a jungle, I would say. Yeah, let me know if you have questions on some topic you want to go further down or something.